On the 6th of June 2008, Jonna graduates from high school with honors. She dreams of becoming a veterinarian or a doctor. Not more than 6 years later, she is convicted of a crime that has no equivalence in Swedish criminal history. The time is 11 on the evening of June 18th, when everything ends for Jonna. In a police car outside her home, she realizes that she has entangled herself in a web of lies. The story she's telling, that the other woman attacked her unprovoked and that she just cut her back with a knife, just doesn't sound credible to the police. One of the police officers interrogating her finally gets enough and confronts her. "It didn't happen like that, did it? Now tell me the truth," he says. She hesitates a moment before she gives the answer. "No, it's not how it happened." She cries a little, but other than that, she is ultra quiet and no remorse is shown, the policeman writes in his report. Jonna says that she wanted the other woman to die. She thinks the woman was not good enough for the man that they both loved. Later on, she will change her story, saying that she just wanted the other girl to be intimidated. But as follows is how the story will be told. The story that got everyone in Sweden dismayed in 2014. The story of Jonna Henningsson, a woman who cold-bloodedly murdered her rival in love, then cut up her body and threw it into the woods. But let's back up the tape, going back to 1989, when Jonna was born, last in a line of 4 siblings. She grows up in a small town in the middle of Sweden. Early on, she becomes very interested in horses. She says, "I have been involved with horses all my life. I have always found it funny. Even if it was a cold December day, I loved to go outside to the stables," she said during the trial. In the early 2000s, Jonna moved to a town in the south of Sweden where her mother had settled after she divorced Jonna's father. However, she continues to have a good relationship with her father. She will also get along very well with her mother's new boyfriend. He trains Jonna in football, and they watch a lot of sports together. And during high school, Jonna often visits her stepfather's mother, who lives in a nursing home. The horses are Jonna's greatest interest. Many weekends are devoted to compete with the horses. A friend from this period, let's call her Maria, remembers that Jonna was very skilled with horses. Yes, she did very well. She had 2 horses, 1 pony and 1 big horse. Neither of them was particularly easy to handle. You must have a lot of skills to cope with horses like that, she says. Maria knew Jonna for years, from middle school and into the school years. It was the interest in horses that brought them together in the first place. Her friend says, "We were stable mates, you could say, and we competed in teams together. But outside the stables, we were not really tight or socialized a lot. Sometimes I was at Jonna's house and rode the horses." She describes Jonna as a very nice girl who found it easy to laugh. At the same time, she said that Jonna could be a little shy. Jonna was not the one who stood out if we were in a larger group. She usually let other people talk and take place. But she says that Jonna had another side as well. She could be both very tough and very stubborn. Maria says that Jonna had a steady boyfriend who was the same age as her from the 9th grade and during high school. Her friend doesn't remember that there was something special about their relationship. Others who remember Jonna from the same time says the same thing. There was nothing special about her. Another friend says she was very kind, funny and calm. She was just like any other girl. Everyone who knew Jonna are unanimous about one thing, that Jonna could have murdered and dismembered someone is completely incomprehensible. It's simply not possible to understand. The first thought I had when I heard about the murder was that it couldn't be her. I still can't understand it even though she's convicted, one of her recent friends says. In June of 2008, Jonna graduates from the science program. The ratings are, as always, extremely good. In 2010, Jonna moves back to the village in the middle of Sweden where she lived as a little girl. According to her stepfather, she ended the relationship with the long-time boyfriend she had at school. He says that the young couple had a good relationship and that there were many tears when it ended. Jonna decides to move and she briefly lives with her father before she moves into her own apartment a few miles from home. In the spring of 2010, she starts working as an hourly paid childcare teacher. It is now that Jonna meets the young man she will have a relationship with for years. They met through the company they were both working for. The couple moved in together in Jonna's apartment, but from the beginning, the relationship was troubled. Her ex says that he repeatedly tried to end the relationship, but Jonna refused to accept it, he says when interrogated after the murder. She's not the type to accept no for an answer. It was like she was trying to keep me at any cost, he says to the police. On some occasions, he tries to actually leave her. But Jonna responds by threatening to throw away all his household goods, and he says he cannot resist and returns to her. At this point, Jonna shows just how jealous she can be. When she finds out that her boyfriend had met his former girlfriend, she gets beside herself. It was a lot of shouting and screaming from her, he says. The relationship was tough because she was so jealous, he says in a police hearing, but she never got physical. However, her former partner also describes her as very kind and cute. And could she hurt someone? No, not a chance, he says. Her ex-partner will be as shocked as everyone else when he finds out just what she has done. People also describe her as kind, happy, and quick to laugh. As a child and teenager, her parents describe her as very calm and very well behaved. She never slammed any doors, and she was never a bother to anyone. Although she could be perceived as a bit childish, the forensic psychiatric examination describes her as not age appropriate, but the positive ratings she gets from workmates and friends during the investigation are completely overwhelming. Jonna was super nice and she always tried to help you, says a colleague in a police hearing. Another workmate describes their close friendships with the words, "We were like sisters. It was like falling in love, but with a friend." The image of Jonna Henningsson is far from clear. Even more difficult to understand is the fact that she is very squeamish. A relative says that she couldn't even manage to break the necks of the fish during fishing trips. Another person very close to her talks about the fact that she has always been very scared of injections and needles. They also said that Jonna is very sensitive to both blood and smells. At the same time, during the day of the murder and dismembering of the body, Jonna says she only vomits once. She can't remember when, but she says it wasn't in connection with the murder itself. She's not even sure if it was when she dismembered the body. She thinks it wasn't. What is it that makes this case so unique in criminal history? A lot. Only 1 in 10 killers are women. And it's even more rare that women decide to cut up their victims. There has only been one more example of this in Sweden during modern times. But it's more than that. Generally, people who are convicted of murder has previously committed crimes. They have also, much more frequently than other people, been in contact with social services and the psychiatry. The level of education is generally low. Most of them have no work. They have social issues, and they are often dependent on alcohol or drugs. Moreover, the average age of female murderers are 37 years old, and their victims are most often their own children or the man they live with. None of the above applies to Jonna in any way. But one thing is important to remember: 9 out of 10 convicted of murder have some form of psychiatric disorder, usually in the form of personality disorders. People committing murders are people who are often easily offended and lack compassion for others and show poor impulse control. They are more likely, because of this, to harm others, and they can do this without any major problems. The investigation shows that Jonna is not completely healthy. The psychiatric investigation shows this. She meets the criteria for a psychiatric diagnosis called maladaptive stress response. Jonna is thinking in a way that only 3% of the population is. She has, to put it simply, difficulties to predict what her actions will lead to. 2013 is an eventful year in Jonna's life. In addition to the studies, she and her partner are buying a house together. A few months after the house purchase, the relationship is ended. This time, it is Jonna ending it. Her partner has no problems with this, and the couple continues to live together, and they will do so until the murder is committed. Both of them say that they just didn't get around to selling the house and get apartments. They got along fine after they were no longer a couple. Jonna is now about to enter into the relationship with the man who will be the reason for the murder. The young man that both Jonna and her victim are in love with. Jonna meets him at a nightclub, and a few months later they begin a very stormy relationship that is off and on until the murder. She says that she falls violently in love with him. He has been like a drug for me. Everything has revolved around him, she explains during the trial. The relationship will take a great toll on Jonna. In 2014, she's feeling very poorly because of the love triangle that unfolds when the man is seeing both girls at the same time. Jonna is threatening to kill herself, and she lies about having surgery to receive sympathy. She also lies about being pregnant and having an abortion. In fact, she also cuts herself and sews the wound to make it look like she had been operated on because of complications she said she had after the made-up abortion. It is, however, unclear if she ever was pregnant, because she says that she was, but then she suddenly started to bleed, and when she took a pregnancy test after this, she was no longer pregnant. She makes all this up because she wants the man to stay with her and leave the other girl who he is seeing at the same time. He seems unable to choose between them, and he goes back and forth. When Jonna said that she was pregnant, he said that he would stay and help her, but when he knew she was no longer pregnant, he went back to the other girl. Jonna had met the girl called Lovisa a few times in pubs and nightclubs, and they always got in arguments. The last time they met was 2 to 3 weeks before the murder. The man, called Jonas, was at an after work with his colleagues, and Jonna went there to talk to him, and she was upset at him because he always changed his plans. They sat together with his colleagues and talks. Then Jonas' phone rings, and it's Lovisa, and after this, she also comes and joins them. As it turns out, Jonas had told her that he would finish everything with Jonna, but to Jonna he said the complete opposite. They all started arguing, and the girls wanted Jonas to choose once and for all. He was really drunk, and it ended up with him going home with his friends, and Louisa and Jonna stayed and talked for about 1 hour. They talked about what Jonas had told them, and he had said the same things to both of them. He told Lovisa that he loved her, and he told Jonna that he loved her. They were both very sad, but they were not angry with each other. And they even hugged before they were to go home. But just as they were to leave, Jonas called. First he called Jonna, and then he called Lovisa. They both decided to go to Jonas' home and talk. Everyone was sad. Lovisa then went home, and Jonna stayed with Jonas. This was the night she told him that she was pregnant. The following day, he told her that he had talked to Lovisa and that he and Lovisa would not see each other anymore. The Sunday after this, Lovisa calls Jonas in the middle of the night. This is a week and a half before the murder. Jonna is with Jonas when Lovisa calls, and he goes outside to talk to her. Jonna says that she gets very sad and worried because she finds it very difficult to trust him. Jonna says it was very difficult to trust him all the time because he kept seeing Lovisa even though he said he wouldn't. She decides to write to Lovisa on Facebook and ask her to leave them alone. Jonna tried to be as nice as possible. Lovisa never responded to the message, but she did read the message to Jonas and said that she thought it seemed really desperate. Jonna also decided to tell Jonas that she had sent the message asking to leave them alone. Jonna felt that they were going behind her back because they had met, even though he said they wouldn't meet anymore. Jonna says she felt very bad the whole week before the murder. She couldn't eat or sleep. Jonna says she vomited almost every day and felt very bad. She says she cried a lot and nothing seemed fun. She had even given up on the horses and wanted to give them away. And the horses she had loved for all her life. During this week, she went home to Jonas and slept at his place all week. She did not want to be by herself. And Jonas and Jonna was fighting the whole week, and they didn't talk to each other. They mostly texted. Jonas said he wanted to be by himself and think things over, while Jonna wanted to be with him all the time. Finally, on a Sunday, Jonas wanted to have his keys back. On this weekend, before the murder who happened on a Wednesday, she gave him his keys back. Jonna said it was hard to give them back because it felt like he wanted them back so that he and Lovisa could be by themselves without risking that Jonna would show up. When Jonna gave back the keys, she also took the things she used daily with her, like her makeup bag, but some other stuff she left behind. Jonas never said that they were breaking up. He only said that he wanted to be alone. Jonna says it was very tough the night before the murder. She just thought and hadn't slept for days. She kept wondering if there was something she could do to make it right. Jonna says that she thought she could hit her just once with a hammer and then Lovisa would pass out. But her search history and all the things she brought with her tells another story. Four days after she returns her keys, she had carefully mapped out her victim. She had also Googled how to kill someone and how to carry and dispose of corpses. She had searched the easiest way to kill someone, how to hire a hitman, how to kill someone, how to get convicted for a murder without a body, hitting someone with a hammer, inject alcohol, jump in front of trains, and autopsy after suicide. She has also watched a lot of Dexter episodes, and she had made searches about the methods in which the character Dexter murders and disposes of his bodies. Early on the morning of June 18th, she leaves her house to go to the place of the man she loves. She parks the car outside the man's apartment. Inside, Lovisa has slept over. Jonna has brought a hammer, a knife, 2 syringes that she has prepared with alcohol and sleeping drugs and sleep hormone. She knew the girl was inside because her car was parked outside the man's apartment. She waits outside until she sees the man leave for work. Jonna says she hesitates to go in for a long time, but she then decides to be tough, as she says. She goes into the stairwell and waits. And when the 22-year-old woman, Lovisa, comes out to leave for work, she lifts the hammer. The murder investigation is a gruesome and unimaginable story about a brutal and very prolonged murder conducted by a short, cute and innocent-looking girl with no previous criminal records. When you look at her, you realize that evil can trick anyone. If you were to meet this girl in the dark, most people would have thought they had nothing to fear, least of all their lives. The look on her face on these photos, taken just a few hours after disposing the dismembered body in the woods, shows a girl that looks far from sinister, but apparently looks deceived. When questioned, Jonna says she waited in the stairs for ages. She also wandered back and forth to her car, and she says, "I kind of did not know if I even dared to do it." This shows that she had a lot of time to come to her senses and leave, but apparently she felt she had no choice but to kill her rival. Jonna had stood in the stairway for a long time. When finally the woman opens the apartment door and comes out, she turns and closes the door and puts the key in the lock. But before she can turn the key, Jonna comes down from the stairs and hits the hammer with full force in the back of her skull. During questioning, Jonna says that she had expected the woman to become unconscious by a single hit with the hammer. But nothing happened. Lovisa only staggered, so that she half stood on the stairs and half stood on the floor, and she made weird sounds. They now have eye contact, and Jonna continues to hit the hammer to the skull. Jonna says that Lovisa shouldn't have made screaming or noises. She should only have passed out. However, she didn't. Lovisa sits down in the stairs holding her head, and Jonna drags her into the apartment. And she says she just wanted her to be quiet. But Lovisa fights back and resists. Jonna says her legs and arms were everywhere. Jonna now takes the knife she brought with her out of the bag, and she tries to cut Lovisa's throat. But her knife turned out to be too blunt. At this time, she also decides to try and stick her with the needles, and she sticks her in several places according to the coroner's investigation. Lovisa had broken needles stuck in her neck. However, she couldn't sedate her, and Lovisa continues to make noises. When Lovisa, despite all this brutal violence, refuses to shut up, in Jonna's words, she remembers that her ex had a hunting knife lying on a computer table. She picks it up and returns to Lovisa and continues to stab her in the neck. And this time she succeeds, she says, because the knife was very much sharper, and Louisa finally went quiet. Louisa died a very prolonged death and suffered for a long time. A neighbor also came to ring the doorbell during the murder because she says she heard screams that were out of this world. What then happens is that Jonna goes home and changes her bloody clothes, and she returns to the crime scene to get rid of the body. However, she discovers that the body is too heavy to move, so she goes home again, and then for a second time she returns with a saw and a couple of bags from IKEA. The whole story is like it's taken out of the worst nightmare you can think of. What then happens in the bathroom cannot even be imagined. Be able to carry out any such gruesome acts, in addition to the murder, requires a person that lacks emotions and the boundaries the rest of us have. She cuts Lovisa's body into 4 parts, and then she puts them into bags from IKEA and manages to get the parts and everything else into the trunk of her car. She then cleans away the blood and washes herself off, and then she sits down and coolly writes a note to the man. It's unimaginable how you could have the presence of mind to do such a thing after having murdered and dismembered another person. She also decides to visit the neighbor who rang the doorbell earlier, and she said that she and the man had argued, but everything was solved now. She said she was sorry for the noise they had made and that their relationship was over and there would be no more disturbances. She drives Lovisa's car to her work and left her own car on a parking lot. Jonna told the police that everything was in the trunk of her car while she worked: the body, the hammer, the knife, and the saw. At about 2:30, she was at her job, and she was behaving as usual, according to her colleagues questioned about their observations. The only noticeable thing was a cut injury on the palm, which she claimed that Lovisa had caused when she, out of nowhere, had attacked her when coming to the apartment to get her things. When she was done working, she left Lovisa's car in the city and she took the bus to her car so that she could go and dump the body in the woods and then drive home. Jonna says she didn't know where to go to dispose of the body, but she found a good road and she drove into the woods. Jonna threw out parts of the body into the woods and she then covered the parts with leaves. She had 6 bags, she says, that she hid in the woods. 3 bags with body parts. Then she had a bag in which she put the bags that had the body parts in them. She had a bag with the hammer and the knife, and she had also a bag with blankets that had gotten blood on them and a backpack. Jonna came home at about 8 in the evening, and she looked very stressed out, according to her ex-partner, who she lived with in the house. She said that he had to help her and that they should get in the car and go to the bigger city nearby. The ex-boyfriend said he would do no such thing. Earlier in the morning, at about 7 o'clock, she had sent him a text message asking for his help. He had declined and turned his phone off. Now he had to nag at Jonna so that she would tell him what had happened. Jonna then says that she had gone home to the man to pick up her things. She had no keys to the apartment, but somehow she had gotten in. Inside the apartment, she had met Lovisa. Lovisa had then become very angry and aggressive, and they had fought. Lovisa had beaten Jonna first, and then she got hold of the knife, which she used to cut Jonna's hand with. Jonna had then managed to get hold of the knife, and she had stabbed Lovisa with it in the neck. Jonna said that she had talked with her sister on her way home, and her sister had told Jonna that she had to go to the police. Her ex-boyfriend said the same thing to her, and Jonna then decides to call the police, and eventually she told them everything as it truly had happened. During the later interrogations, Jonna stated that it was not intended that Lovisa should die. The idea was just to frighten Lovisa, hit her once and then run away. She wanted Lovisa to leave the man so that he would come back to Jonna. But the police didn't believe that story since the search history showed otherwise, and she had brought a knife, syringes, alcohol and sleeping drugs with her. She tells the police that she had thought about 2 different scenarios. Either that she would hit Lovisa with the hammer, or she would scare her in the car. Jonna says that she had thought that when Lovisa jumped into her car to go to work, Jonna would get behind her without Lovisa noticing. She would then threaten her with the knife and give her a shot in the neck so that Lovisa would pass out. She says she thought that she would do as the main character in Dexter did, and that she would give her a shot so that she passed out. She says that Dexter gives his victims a shot like this before he kills them. Jonna had watched the series many times, but she now believes it has stopped showing. She says that in the series everything looks so easy, and if someone hits someone with a hammer, they fall unconscious immediately. When the police then asks her if she had planned to kill and dismember Lovisa, since Dexter does this, she says that she doesn't think that Dexter dismembers the body before dumping them. However, he does. On April the 24th, 2016, she took place in her new home, a cell in the women's penitentiary institution. She was sentenced to life in prison. She spends a lot of her time reading, according to an informant. She has read about Stalin, Hitler, Mussolini, all about those who have made horrible things, real tormentors. When asked about what she reads, she herself just replies, history. She is locked up in a notorious prison in which some of Sweden's most dangerous women are locked up. Another informant, familiar with the institution's innermost circles, says, "She has told me that she was at the murder scene and that there was blood, but she does not know who had done the killing." She says in front of a lot of other inmates that she doesn't know if she has done what she is convicted for. She says that she sees a picture in front of her dismembering the body, but she can see another person's back. When people ask her, "Who would have done this if it wasn't you?" she says she does not know and she can't explain it. Jonna is one of the female prisoners that receives many visits in the prison. Someone visits every weekend. It's often relatives, her sister, mother and father, or friends. She also gets a lot of fan mail from male inmates at other correctional facilities. However, many people make jokes about her in there and say that she is a bit of a freak. One very special event took place in the prison's basement, when several of the inmates handled goods from a food delivery. A huge bag of chicken pieces came, and one of the other women shouted out, "Jonna, who do you got in the bag?" Then Jonna just went outside and wept. Jonna has often expressed in front of other prisoners that she thinks it's very strange that her ex-boyfriend turned his back on her. She says that she is very surprised that he doesn't want to talk to her. She says, "But we had a house together and everything."